Hey, what's up guys? This is 3D Bonfire back with another amazing tutorial, and today I just want to show you how you can create the most beautiful cloth simulations with a focus on creating amazing flags, which looks super complex. But of course, these techniques, you can also use them in other ways. For example, this is definitely not a flag, but you can see it's still powerful. And of course, you can combine these simulations with your client's product. So for example, maybe there will be a perfume or some headphones, whatever your client is asking for. I'm just convinced that the cloth module in Cinema 4D is pretty powerful, and I think with the latest release of 2025.2 there should at least be some slight improvements under the hood in terms of speed and stability, but I'm not exactly sure on that. But I just can say that I used the cloth module in previous client projects and I still feel confident about using it, so this is something that is working in Cinema 4D. Besides that, yes, we are missing an improvement on, for example, the hair module or even liquids, which are at least announced for the next update. So yes, in this tutorial, in this video, let's not complain about what we are missing, but let's just be happy what we are already having in Cinema 4D. And today I want to focus on this topic. Just be sure that for these simulations, which are perfectly stable without any intersections, I want to provide you with a starting file. Okay, so these are 40 pre-made geometries by me that you can then combine to different flags. So you can say you want to use this one and this one and this one and this one and maybe some of the shorter ones. Then just like I did it here, stack them behind each other and just click on the simulate button and get something amazing. So just to make your life even more easy, I created this starting file on my Patreon. So you can move over to my Patreon 3D Bonfire, download this file for free, 40 cloth elements. If you watch this tutorial later, then to find it, just go to the search post and search for 40 cloth elements, and then I'm sure you will find it. Inside of this post, you will find this file to download it. And this is exactly this file that I want to use with you today, later in this tutorial. The only thing that you have to do to get access to this file is to go to my Patreon, join for free as a free member. I mean, you can easily cancel it afterwards. But maybe one last thing that I want to mention, I just cleaned up my Patreon yesterday, and I think I have like between 100 or 200 tutorials exclusively over there, and like 50% of them I organized now into collections. For example, you can learn something about loops, then you get access to specific tutorials on this topic, or maybe you are into product rendering, just click on it. And then you also will find a lot of lessons about this topic, and you can buy access to single collections with this price tag. But just be sure, if you sign in for the Knights membership, which is I think like 20 euros, then you get access to everything. Okay, so I would definitely say just sign in for the Knights membership and get access to all of this training without having to buy access to single collections. But yes, you can see there is a lot of cool training. And this is the last thing that I want to mention. This is me on Instagram if you want to follow my latest artworks and just be up to date with my tutorial plans. But now let's dive into Cinema 4D and build something. Alright guys, finally in Cinema 4D, and you can see this beautiful simulation that I just cached to show you the beautiful long stretchy movement of those cloth pieces. I think this is just really nice. But you can also see at this point in time I'm releasing those cloth pieces from their pinned position, so now they will move free with the forces that you have in the scene, mostly the turbulence and also the wind. And then you also get some beautiful interesting movement. I have to say, maybe for this simulation I went a bit too high with the stretching and bending of these single pieces. They get cluttered up a little bit too much. Alright, it looks a bit messy, but you get the idea. Also, it's actually the same that I do in this composition. I just deactivate the thicken at the subsurface so I can move better in the scene. But you can see also here to get like this beautiful swiping movement from left to the right and just an interesting overall movement. But yes, you can see that this cloth movement is very interesting, but it all starts from a basic setup like this, where they are aligned on top of each other in such a pattern. But then, because they are not pinned to their position, they will now just fly away and move with the turbulence. And this is basically what I'm also doing here. At a certain point I'm releasing them from their position, just to show you that you can also use these cloth stripes for more abstract composition that you will get now here. I mean, now you could go with the camera into all kinds of angles and get a very interesting shot. But I think the main idea of this tutorial should be this part here, where the cloth is still pinned to its pole and you get this kind of a beautiful, very complex flag. So I will share this file on my Patreon. I think this one will be exclusive, but I haven't made up my mind completely. But this one here, this is the file that I will definitely share with you. So you can select all kinds of different pieces here to stack them on top of each other to then create your own very complex flag. And when I would press NB, then you can see that I also took already care of the subdivision, that this one is relatively dense so that you get beautiful wrinkles, but it is not too dense so that your computer will crash. So this is a good basis that you can use to then just layer them in the Z-axis. I mean, I should probably go to the top view. You can see that I just stacked them behind each other and then I pinned them to the pole. Click on this one, then you can see the pinning here. So all of these pieces, they are fixed to their anchor or pole, however you want to call it. And then you just play with a different combination of turbulence and wind and you are already there. But I would say before we go into building a complex flag, maybe I will just give you a little refresher here so that you remember how to build a flag, or maybe you're just a total beginner and you really don't know at all how to actually build a flag. So let me just show you the basics for a very simple flag before we build a more complex flag. First, of course, you want to give your plane that you then want to turn into your flag a certain level of subdivisions, maybe something like this, but you could also increase it more. Because we only work with one cloth piece, you can definitely go higher with the subdivisions. Then you could duplicate this one, make it a little bit thinner, move it over here. This one will act as a pole. You don't need any subdivisions in the width. And I mean, you could make this one even smaller. And maybe you even want to call this one pole and you want to call this one flag. Then go to the pole, go to the simulation text and put the t-shirt tag, the cloth tag onto it. This one has to be a cloth object for the simulation to work, but you want to go to mix animation and pin this one 100% in space. So now this one will no longer be dynamic. You can duplicate this one, put this one onto the flag, but this one of course has to be dynamic. Get rid of the pinning, go to the surface. Maybe you even want to give this one some stretching, make it a little bit more thin. And then you want to click on the pole once again and put a connector onto this one. You need a certain search radius so that these points will connect with the points from your flag. Let's just see if the create already is working. No, it doesn't. So put this one to 5, create it one more time. Now you can see we reached those points with our connections. That's exactly what we want. Press Ctrl D to go to the scene settings, get rid of the gravity. And we could already simulate this one, but now you can see this is a pretty sad flag, I would say. So let's get rid of the gravity, go to forces, put a turbulence into the mix. Maybe you also want to put a wind into it, put the wind over there, rotate this one into an angle like this, maybe with a little bit of an upwards movement, something like that. Go to the wind, put this one maybe to 200, this one to 20, 20. I'm just guessing those numbers, honestly, but let's just see what we will get with a mix like this one. And let's play, and there you go. Press NA to get rid of the lines. And I mean, this is not exactly thrilling, but this is the basic idea of creating a flag. But of course, now we want to make this way more interesting. And by the way, if you see these artifacts, this is just due to the font shading. So you could put this one to 180 to get rid of these ugly artifacts. I mean, you could also put this already into a thicken, make it a little bit thicker, then put it into a subdivision surface. I'm doing both of these steps while holding down Alt, so it will turn into a parent-child hierarchy like this one. Go to the thicken, maybe put this just to 2 to give it a little bit of thickness. Maybe you want to give your flag a subdivision of 1 here along the border. Let's just see. Yes, to just define this a bit more so that it looks even more beautiful. And there you would have your flag. All right, this is the basic flag. But now I would say let's build a more complex flag by using some of these preset geometries that I already created for you to then create a flag like this one, which is just looking way more interesting. So this is totally up to you which elements you want to use for your flag. I just thought that maybe these presets might help you to get a lot of variation into your flag easily. So now I would say for this tutorial, I will just use maybe 4 or 5 of those ones and combine them to my flag. But just be sure that for my final, I was using 21 elements, okay? And just to mention this one more time, you can see that all of those ones with a certain distance between them, they are stacked in the Z-axis and then pinned to the pole. But now let's just do it and not just talk about it. So I think that this one could be a nice geometry that I want to use. So I would just go into this hierarchy, select the top hierarchy level there, and I would just duplicate this one by holding down Ctrl D and just move it up there. So I like to use this one, and maybe I want to combine it with this. So let me just go into the hierarchy, and you just want to select the top hierarchy and copy this one. Okay, so I'm doing this one more time. I like to use those two and maybe one with these bigger elements. That could also be a nice combination. So I'm selecting the letter once again, copy this one down there. So now I have 3 elements. Maybe I want to use now some which are a little bit shorter. So I will just go into this hierarchy, select this once again, duplicate this and copy it out there. And just because this was so easy, let me select one more of these geometries. This one here, I will once again copy it out. So now I have 5 elements that I want to turn into an amazing flag. Therefore, let me just do some housekeeping. I can, for this tutorial now, get rid of all of this geometry. I don't need it anymore. And I'm also deciding on which one will be in the front and which one will be back. This one should be first, then I think this one should appear next. Go with this one as number 3, and this one will be 4, and this one will be the back piece. I can now select all of them, zero them out to move them to the world origin. Just to see this one better, you could press NB, but then you got a lot of lines here. You can press NA again. You could also activate the ambient occlusion here. Then you would see when these objects are really close to each other, then there will be a shadow, but I think it would be even more helpful to just create like 5 different materials, and I will just put these ones onto them. Maybe one more which is the darkest, and then I have this pole over here. I also barely can see it, so I will just put a red shader onto this one. Now I'll press F2 to see it from the top. This one back there, this thin line, this is my pole. So now I want to go to those objects here, and I want to put the endpoint here close to my pole where I want to pin it to. This one doesn't have to be super exact. I'm just stacking them up here with a certain distance between them to make it easier for the calculations. I'm just aligning the endpoints here. I wasn't working too exact when I created those ones. Okay, I'm sorry, but just move it over there to get something like this one. I hope that you can see it. But the idea is, yes, these ones, they are just stacked behind each other, and don't worry if one is ending already here. It doesn't really matter that much. The important thing is that with the search radius, maybe you put this one to 15, and then you want to create those connections. But I think first we need to go to our t-shirt tags or cloth tags. Let's go to basic and enable those ones. Now these ones will really be dynamic objects. Now you can go to the pole, to the connector, and create those connections. Let's see this one from the top, but it seems like that all objects here have at least one connection to your connector. I know this is looking a little bit messy, but it's just important that the distance, the radius is high enough so that these connections will be created. Okay, and I think you shouldn't worry about if this is looking a little bit messy when you go close to it. I would say that this one is already the basis for what I did in my more complex cloth simulations, but I think now with a turbulence in the mix, I mean, you can see these ones are just random numbers you have to play with, also with a little bit of wind. But yeah, when I would now simulate this, honestly, my computer is a little bit slow, but you can see it's chugging through the frames. You could also already maybe pause this one and go back to 0 and wait for 2 minutes while you are caching this one. I would suggest for you that you externally cache this one. Otherwise, your files can get quite big, and then the saving and loading process will just be a pain. So just be sure to put this one to an external cache. But you can already see that we get quite an interesting movement here. And of course, you could already cache this one, but I just don't want to make this tutorial too long. You definitely get the idea on what I'm doing here, right? So this is just a more complex version of what we just did together. And maybe just to give you even more value, let's quickly talk about different combinations of forces and what results you will get out of this one. So here, for example, I already cached this one, and I would say that this is a basic movement. It's not very inspiring. The noise is not giving me so much interesting details, at least for a shot like this one. I would say it's just too obvious that there is like a random noise moving and doing its wiggle thing here and there. So you can see what you are getting here with a turbulence like this one and a wind setting like that. Also, when you press Ctrl D and go into the simulation settings, you can see that especially the dampening for this simulation was pretty high. The standard value is 2, but it seems like for this one I went up to 20. I also increased the substeps and the smoothing iteration, but I think honestly when you default this one again and work with those numbers, you will already get a clean, safe simulation. I think I just went up with these numbers for safety reasons because I wanted to make sure that there are no intersections, but I'm pretty sure also with the default settings settings, you will get a very good result. So stick to those numbers. Just keep in mind that for this result here, I went up with the damping to 20, which is sucking out a lot of the energy. Let me jump to this setup 2 and let's just see what is happening here. So this one is moving a little bit faster, mostly because I reduced the damping to 10, so not so much energy will be lost. And forget about the other numbers, those ones are not so important, but it seems like that I'm working with a little bit of a bigger noise. And also I think the wind got stronger, but I also would like to say that this might be not the most beautiful results, even though when you go close to it, you can definitely find beautiful shots with this one. But you can see, depending on the turbulence and the wind setting, you will get totally different behaviors, of course, for your flag. I think that this one feels better, where I go with a setting for the wind like this. It seems like that I probably reduced the turbulence here and also the noise. I think it has a bigger scale, and for this size of my flag, I would say that this movement is quite beautiful, especially when I would go for closer shots like this. Then you get a very natural movement here in your simulation. You basically will find a lot of beautiful shots with this one. What is a bit funny is that for the initial pinning process, it seems that I forgot some of those thinner cloth pieces and they are flying around here, but I think that this is a very nice detail. Let's see one more setting here, and for this one it seems that the pattern overall is even more natural. I like especially what's happening here. Let me see this once again. So this is a very natural movement in the wind. I could totally see this one as a more realistic result. Let's see this once again. Yes, this is very nice, how the turbulence and the wind is playing together. So that's a very nice result. When I press Ctrl D, you can see this one doesn't suck out so much energy as the previous versions. So definitely I would say maybe you leave this one at a standard value, or you go up to 5 if you want to just calm down your animation just a little bit. But overall, let's see the wind setting. I guess that I was increasing also the wind speed for this one to stretch it out even more. I changed those numbers probably also a little bit, and the turbulence, I guess that the scale here is increased in comparison to the previous versions, so that we get a bigger noise pattern, which is looking just way more realistic, I would say. But of course, this is depending on what you are going for. Let's see one last version over here, and what is this one doing? Okay, it seems like this one, yeah, this one is just a little bit more flat or directional. I guess that the turbulence here has less strength, and also the scale is probably smaller than in the previous version to just give it a little bit of wiggle. But mostly the wind is blowing into this direction, and with little turbulence, a lot of speed, so those ones will be stretched along this axis, along the direction of the wind, and you get something, yeah, more calm, more controlled in comparison to this one, where you definitely can see that the noise just is creating something more wild and interesting. So yes, you get all of these different movements depending on the setting in your turbulence and the wind. And I guess now it is really up to you to just select some of these objects. As I said, when you select them, just be sure that you then select this one with the capital letter. This one is the element D, and I would just hold down Control, copy this one out and select this one, and maybe then you want to also use this one. So just copy these elements out that you want to use, make this one invisible for example, and then just be sure to enable the cloth tag on those ones and then pin them onto your pole and create an amazing flag. And then when you put a beautiful shader onto it, I would suggest for you that you put way more colors into it. Maybe my blue color scheme is a little bit on the boring side, but yes, you can make this one way more beautiful. You can release the cloth from its pinning position to get crazy simulations like those ones that you can see over here. But other than that, there is not so much more to say. I would say just go to my Patreon, download the free file and play with this flag. Maybe you even want to do me the favor to subscribe to my YouTube channel. But now I just want to wish you a great day. Have an amazing time. Bye everyone.